The gavel struck with a thunderous crack that echoed through the courtroom, and silence gripped every bench. Emily Carter clutched the stand, whispering, "This can't be happening." Richard Hale's smirk curved faintly, as if the chaos pleased him. Jason Reed muttered, "They don't even care," his fists trembling. Claire Monroe leaned closer, murmuring, "Stay calm, or you'll lose yourself in their game." Daniel Ross remained motionless at the back, his eyes fixed forward with unsettling quiet. In the stillness, the air felt poisoned with tragedy waiting to unfold. A memory flickered inside Emily, Anna Hayes's face glowing like a fragile ghost, and the loss tightened her chest with unbearable weight. The courtroom sat in silence after the gavel, the air thick with dread. Emily Carter whispered, "It feels like the walls are closing in." Jason Reed tapped his foot in frantic rhythm, his anger unhidden. Claire Monroe leaned close, murmuring, "Patience, everything has its time." Her hand lingered longer than comfort alone, weighted with meaning. Daniel Ross scanned the room, his stillness more dangerous than motion. Richard Hale adjusted his cufflinks, expression unreadable but smug. Emily's mind sparked with the faint image of Anna Hayes, a phantom reminder of the price already paid. The prosecutor's words slashed through silence, cold and sharp. Emily Carter flinched, her gaze dropping to the floorboards that seemed kinder than the stairs. Richard Hale observed with satisfaction, whispering, "Control is everything." Jason Reed twisted in his seat, fists tight, eyes darting. Claire Monroe leaned in, whispering, "Don't let them see you break," her kindness edged with steel. Daniel Ross scribbled notes with deliberate strokes. In Emily's chest, Anna Hayes' presence pulsed like a wound, drawing her deeper into the trial's suffocating weight. The judge's voice cut the air, declaring, "We proceed with the testimony." Emily Carter's shoulders shook as the weight pressed down. Jason Reed whispered fiercely, "Don't let them crush you." Claire Monroe brushed her hair back, murmuring, "You're not alone, even if it feels that way." Her calm expression hid secrets. Daniel Ross sat silent, posture rigid. Richard Hale leaned forward, fingers steepled, gaze sharp as blades. In Emily's thoughts, Anna Hayes appeared, her faint smile urging her toward words she feared to speak. Emily Carter finally spoke, her voice fragile but steady. "The night still burns in my mind." Her words rang with pain and defiance. Jason Reed leaned forward, whispering, "Tell them the truth." Claire Monroe's eyes softened, her hands folded in careful calm. Daniel Ross's gaze locked on the judge, pen abandoned but grip tight. Richard Hale's lips curved in quiet amusement. The trial, his theater. In Emily's thoughts, Anna Hayes lingered, a ghost urging her to remember that silence always comes with a cost. The trial pressed forward, its silence broken by the shuffle of papers and the sharp intake of nervous breaths. Emily Carter lifted her gaze, her lips trembling as she whispered, "They want me to fail." Jason Reed leaned forward, muttering, "Then prove them wrong." Claire Monroe reached out, her tone soothing. "Every voice carries weight, even yours." Richard Hale folded his hands neatly, his smirk steady as if already writing the ending. Daniel Ross remained immovable, his face calm but his eyes sharper than steel. The faint memory of Anna Hayes drifted in Emily's mind, her image carrying a promise of justice denied for too long. Every second dragged like a stone across glass, fragile and ready to shatter. The prosecutor's voice rose, booming accusations that cracked against Emily Carter's resolve. She swallowed hard, whispering, "It wasn't my fault." Jason Reed's fist hit the wooden bench softly, muttering, "They twist everything." Claire Monroe whispered gently, "Let them rage. Truth survives storms." Richard Hale sat motionless, only his eyes alive with a predator's gleam. Daniel Ross scratched another line into his notes, each stroke deliberate and final. The phantom of Anna Hayes lingered near Emily's shoulder, her faint presence urging silence yet demanding truth. Every word spoken in that courtroom carried the weight of lives destroyed. The judge's hammer rested, but the tension only grew heavier. Emily Carter drew a shallow breath, saying softly, "They will never understand." Jason Reed's voice broke, Well, make them understand. Claire Monroe touched his arm, murmuring, "Anger burns bridges you may need." Richard Hale leaned back, his expression unreadable but dangerous. Daniel Ross's gaze cut briefly toward Emily before he looked away, his silence heavier than words. Anna Hayes appeared again in memory, smiling faintly, a reminder of innocence lost. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick, as if fate itself leaned closer to listen. The defense rose, voice smooth but sharp as a blade, circling Emily Carter's words with poisoned questions. She whispered, "Why do they twist my truth?" Jason Reed hissed, "Because they're afraid of it." Claire Monroe whispered low, "Hold steady, they feed on weakness." Richard Hale's smirk spread wider, his silence speaking louder than argument. Daniel Ross shifted in his seat, a small motion that carried weight like thunder. Anna Hayes' shadow loomed behind Emily, her memory pushing her toward defiance. The courtroom turned into a cage where every eye judged, waiting for one collapse. The air grew suffocating as the questioning dragged on, every phrase sharpened like a weapon. Emily Carter finally raised her voice. "I have nothing left to hide." Jason Reed leaned forward, whispering, "That's the fire they fear." Claire Monroe nodded faintly. "Truth cuts sharper than lies." Richard Hale's smirk faded, his calm face tightening with control slipping. Daniel Ross tapped his pen once, the sound small but echoing with finality. The flicker of Anna Hayes appeared again in Emily's mind, her ghost whispering strength into her words. For the first time, the room shifted, as though power trembled between collapse and revelation. The trial surged forward, with evidence suddenly introduced, its weight shifting the balance of every heart in the room. Emily Carter whispered, "They found it, but too late." Jason Reed hissed, "They buried this before." Claire Monroe leaned closer, murmuring, "Pieces always resurface." Richard Hale narrowed his eyes, his confidence flickering but unbroken. Daniel Ross tapped his pen against the desk, slow and deliberate, as if he already knew this was coming. The ghost of Anna Hayes shimmered faintly, her silent presence filling Emily with dread and determination. The atmosphere tightened like a rope pulling around every throat, the truth struggling to breathe. The prosecutor's voice thundered accusations tied to the new evidence, demanding clarity from Emily Carter. She whispered, "I told them before." Jason Reed muttered, "They never listened." Claire Monroe placed her hand lightly on Jason's shoulder, whispering, "Noise drowns truth if you let it." Richard Hale leaned forward, his smirk sharpened into a blade of intent. Daniel Ross's eyes flicked to Richard before returning to Emily, a flicker of calculation sparking in the silence. Anna Hayes' memory hovered faint and fragile, her image a reminder of secrets left in the dark. The courtroom felt smaller, walls closing with each word. Emily Carter's voice cracked as she said, "The truth was buried under lies." Jason Reed whispered, "Say it louder." Claire Monroe whispered gently, "Strength comes in steady streams, not storms." Richard Hale tilted his head, his calm shifting into quiet menace. Daniel Ross remained silent, but his stillness carried a weight heavier than words. The faint vision of Anna Hayes smiled for a heartbeat, urging Emily to stand taller. The jury shifted uneasily, their eyes darting from one figure to the next, caught between doubt and belief. Shadows stretched long across the courtroom, time dragging heavy with consequence. The defense countered sharply, twisting each word, turning Emily Carter's testimony into a weapon against her. She whispered, "Why does truth cut me too?" Jason Reed muttered, "Because they're afraid of it." Claire Monroe pressed her palm against the table, saying softly, "Hold steady, storms pass." Richard Hale leaned back, steepling his fingers with icy patience. Daniel Ross shifted his gaze toward the jury, his eyes unreadable but purposeful. The ghost of Anna Hayes flickered like a candlelight in the dark, a fragile reminder of innocence lost. The air felt suffocating, thick with strategy and despair. The weight of silence returned as Emily Carter steadied her voice. "I will not break," she declared, fragile but fierce. Jason Reed leaned close, whispering, "That's the fight they fear." Claire Monroe nodded faintly, her calm steady as stone. Richard Hale's smirk faltered, his composure shaken for the first time. Daniel Ross pressed his pen flat against the paper, the sound sharp and final. Anna Hayes' faint image lingered near Emily, her ghostly presence giving strength through memory. The room shifted, the balance tilting with every breath, and the trial became a battlefield of truth versus control. The courtroom air shifted when a sealed file was brought forward, the weight of its presence undeniable. Emily Carter's voice broke. "That was never supposed to be seen." Jason Reed whispered fiercely. "They tried to erase it." Claire Monroe leaned closer, her calm voice steady. "The past always claws its way back." Richard Hale's eyes darkened, his smirk fading as he studied the file. Daniel Ross sat upright, his posture rigid, betraying knowledge he fought to conceal. The image of Anna Hayes shimmered faintly, her presence whispering of hidden truths. Every gaze in the room sharpened, knowing the story was no longer what it seemed. The prosecutor tore open the file, spreading photographs across the bench. Emily Carter gasped, whispering, "That night, it was her." Jason Reed slammed his palm down, muttering, "They knew all along." Claire Monroe whispered, "Every truth carries a price." Richard Hale leaned forward, his mask cracking. "Enough games." Daniel Ross lowered his gaze, shadows hiding his face as if silence could absolve him. Anna Hayes' memory flickered stronger, her smile now sharp, no longer gentle but accusing. The revelation rippled through the courtroom like thunder waiting to break. The judge demanded silence, but the truth had already spilled into the room. Emily Carter whispered, "She was never gone." Jason Reed's voice trembled. "They buried her twice, once in life and once in truth." Claire Monroe's eyes narrowed. "Now, everyone must see." Richard Hale adjusted his cufflinks, his composure fractured by unease. Daniel Ross exhaled slowly, his pen slipping from his fingers, a rare crack in his control. Anna Hayes' ghost appeared at the center of Emily's memory, her faint smile a dagger in the room. The trial had changed. The story was rewritten. The defense tried to regain control, twisting the reveal into doubt. But Emily Carter's voice rose. "The truth will not vanish again." Jason Reed leaned in, whispering, "They fear you now." Claire Monroe whispered, "Fear is their weakness." Richard Hale's smirk returned faintly, though his eyes betrayed his struggle. Daniel Ross shifted uneasily, his fingers tapping with nervous rhythm. The ghost of Anna Hayes shimmered brighter, her presence no longer fragile but forceful. The balance of power tilted, every word now striking like fire. The silence after the storm was heavier than the chaos itself. Emily Carter whispered, "She is still here, with us." Jason Reed's eyes burned as he said, "They can't bury her again." Claire Monroe's calm expression softened. Truth always finds its way home. Richard Hale leaned back, his mask broken, silence his only weapon left. Daniel Ross lowered his pen, his expression unreadable but weighted. Anna Hayes' image stood clearer than ever in Emily's mind, no longer a memory but a haunting presence. The courtroom felt like a place where ghosts demanded justice louder than the living. The courtroom erupted in overlapping voices, but Emily Carter stood firm, her voice trembling as she shouted, "You will not silence me again." Jason Reed rose halfway from his seat, whispering fiercely, "They're breaking." Claire Monroe leaned toward him, murmuring, "Let her carry this fire." Richard Hale's jaw tightened, the smirk gone, his composure unraveling. Daniel Ross placed his hands flat on the table, his silence now deafening. Anna Hayes' image hovered vividly behind Emily, her ghost's gaze piercing the lies that bound them all. The trial no longer felt like law but war. The prosecutor demanded order, pounding the desk, but the truth had already cracked the surface. Emily Carter's voice quavered, "Her blood is on your hands." Jason Reed's fists shook as he muttered, "They'll never admit it." Claire Monroe whispered, "They don't need to admit. The truth shines itself." Richard Hale leaned forward, his glare cutting like knives. Daniel Ross looked briefly at Emily, then away, his eyes wet with unspoken knowledge. Anna Hayes' presence grew, no longer faint but blazing, filling the space with accusation. The courtroom seemed to collapse inward, as if the walls themselves were listening. The judge raised his gavel, but Emily Carter's words cut through louder. Anna Hayes never left us. You buried her truth. Jason Reed gasped, whispering, She said it. Claire Monroe whispered softly, The silence is over. Richard Hale's expression fractured, lines of fear finally visible. Daniel Ross exhaled shakily, the weight of secrets breaking him. Anna Hayes' ghostly form stood clearer in memory, her faint smile transforming into resolve. The room quivered with the weight of revelation, as if the floor itself might shatter under the truth now revealed. The defense tried desperately to object, but Emily Carter pressed forward, her words sharp as steel. The lies end here. Jason Reed leaned toward her, whispering, They can't twist it now. Claire Monroe nodded slowly, her calm unbroken. The fire has already burned through. Richard Hale lowered his gaze, his once unshakable control collapsing. Daniel Ross's shoulders sagged, the mask gone, revealing guilt etched deep. Anna Hayes' spirit flared in Emily's mind, a vision no longer fading but undeniable. The climax swelled with the certainty that nothing could return to silence again. The gavel slammed, but it could not contain the storm. Emily Carter raised her chin, whispering, She stands with me. Jason Reed pressed his hand to the bench, muttering, Justice breathes again. Claire Monroe's calm broke into a faint smile. This is what they feared. Richard Hale slumped back, silence consuming him at last. Daniel Ross lowered his head, as if surrendering to ghosts he could no longer fight. Anna Hayes' presence burned brighter than ever, her image standing tall, unbroken, demanding justice in every corner of the room. The climax had arrived, irreversible and absolute. The echoes of the gavel faded, leaving behind an aching silence. Emily Carter whispered, It is finished but not over. Jason Reed clenched his fists, muttering, They can't escape this now. Claire Monroe leaned close, saying softly, The truth always leaves scars. Richard Hale lowered his gaze, his arrogance stripped, silence his only defense. Daniel Ross sat frozen, his pen fallen, eyes locked on the floor, as if weighed by ghosts. Anna Hayes' image glowed brighter than ever, her presence filling the room with bittersweet triumph. The air carried the heaviness of justice that cut both ways. The judge spoke in solemn tones, his words heavy as stone, declaring the court adjourned. Emily Carter whispered, The truth has been spoken. Jason Reed muttered, But will they act on it? Claire Monroe replied softly, Justice is never clean. Richard Hale sat back, his face drawn, no smirk left to wear. Daniel Ross pressed his hand against his temple, a man cracking beneath his own weight. Anna Hayes shimmered brighter, her smile faint but resolute. The trial had ended, but the aftermath would ripple like waves long after the doors closed. As people filed out, whispers spread like wildfire. But Emily Carter stood still, her voice trembling. She can finally rest. Jason Reed whispered fiercely, Not until they pay. Claire Monroe touched his arm gently, murmuring, Let anger go before it consumes you. Richard Hale avoided every eye, his once commanding presence broken into fragments. Daniel Ross lingered, shoulders bowed, his silence deeper than words. Anna Hayes' ghost hovered near Emily, her presence soft but steady, no longer lost but found. The courtroom felt emptied of power, yet heavy with unresolved weight. Outside the courthouse, the air was colder, evening shadows stretching across the steps. Emily Carter whispered, Every ending is just another beginning. Jason Reed muttered, Then we start from here. Claire Monroe's calm voice carried her truth forward. Richard Hale stepped outside slowly, his face drained, his silence a confession of its own. Daniel Ross followed, his posture heavy, his shadow longer than his frame. Anna Hayes lingered faint in Emily's mind, her presence now less of a ghost and more of a guide. Justice felt won, lost, and reborn in the same breath. The group stood in silence beneath the courthouse lights, the night settling around them. Emily Carter whispered, We are not free, but we are no longer silent. Jason Reed's eyes burned as he said, "She walks with us now." Claire Monroe nodded faintly, her words soft, "And her truth binds us." Richard Hale turned away into the dark, his figure swallowed by shadow. Daniel Ross stood still, torn between guilt and surrender. Anna Hayes' presence glowed bright, her spirit lingering, unbroken. The trial was over, but the story had only shifted into memory and legacy. The courthouse emptied into the night, but Emily Carter lingered on the steps whispering, "We survived the trial, but not the truth." Jason Reed's voice cracked, "Then we carry it with us." Claire Monroe laid a steadying hand on his shoulder, murmuring, "Some burdens must be shared." Richard Hale stood apart, silent, shadows hiding his face. Daniel Ross remained near, his silence heavier than confession. Anna Hayes' image shimmered in the night air, no longer faint but standing tall, her ghost's presence more vivid than ever. The world felt hushed, as though waiting for her final word. The silence deepened as the cold air wrapped around them. Emily Carter whispered, "She deserves peace." Jason Reed muttered, "Peace comes after justice." Claire Monroe's calm voice replied, "Justice is never whole, but it is enough." Richard Hale exhaled, his breath visible in the night, but said nothing. Daniel Ross lowered his gaze, unable to face the weight of his choices. Anna Hayes' ghostly figure lingered near Emily, her faint smile holding both sadness and release. The night carried their words like promises, etched into the dark. Emily Carter closed her eyes, whispering, "Her voice will not fade." Jason Reed clenched his jaw, saying, "Well, make sure of it." Claire Monroe murmured softly, "Memory is the sharpest truth." Richard Hale turned slightly away, his silence a surrender. Daniel Ross pressed a hand to his chest, his breath shallow, haunted by choices he could not undo. Anna Hayes' image stood brighter than ever, her gaze steady and unbroken, as though she were both past and future. The night air carried a quiet that felt eternal. The group stood together, shadows long across the stone, bound by grief and truth. Emily Carter whispered, "We gave her voice back." Jason Reed said, "And they can never silence it again." Claire Monroe replied, "Some truths live longer than we do." Richard Hale moved further into darkness, his figure dissolving into shadow. Daniel Ross stood frozen, his eyes wet with regret. Anna Hayes' ghost lingered above them, her presence almost radiant, a haunting reminder that truth, once freed, cannot be buried again. The night grew still, a silence heavier than any verdict. Emily Carter whispered, "Her truth will haunt them forever." Jason Reed murmured, "And guide us." Claire Monroe closed her eyes, whispering, "This is not an ending, but a mark upon us all." Richard Hale vanished into the dark, a shadow consumed. Daniel Ross lowered his head, swallowed by guilt that would never release him. Anna Hayes' presence glowed with piercing clarity, her faint smile the last image that lingered. The trial was over, but its ghost would echo eternally.